Falklands podcast from Falkland Islands television right down here in the South Atlantic Ocean. I'm Paula.
I'm Hannah.
And I'm Tom.
Well, we're not in the ocean really, are we?
We're underwater right this second.
We're sitting on an island.
Wait, no. We're sitting on a group of islands which is called, Hannah, pronounce it.
Archipelago.
Yeah.
There we go.
Archipelago.
Was it
Archipelago.
Archipelago? Was it?
Archipelago.
I wasn't even sure what you were asking
I had
me.
to spell it out phonetically for my voice. I write it down phonetically, so I'd be like archipelago.
So if you're watching along, listener, actually there's more than one of you now. I know this for a fact.
Listeners.
Yeah.
Plural.
Yeah, we know there's more than one of you out there. Anyway, if you're listening along and you're watching this week's programme on our website FITV.co.fk, you're looking at week number 404, and it is jam-packed this week. Yeah. Jam-packed.
Well, last week was pretty busy as well, to be fair.
Yeah, jam-packed with visual goodies this week, though. And
I like that.
Visual goodies.
Visual goodies. It is very visual.
All for our very extra special new platform.
Yes.
Thomas?
Yeah, so high definition, finally.
Woo!
So always filmed in HD, never...
So you see all my wrinkles now.
You have to listen to Gerard Butler even more now.
Oh, I've gone off him. Michael Fassbender's the
Are we going to have to change the picture then in the studio?
I think we're going to have
For those of you who don't know, Paula has a picture of Gerard Butler that tells her to smile to make sure she doesn't look grumpy. So
you need to watch Alien Convent. Michael Fassbender, and that's not a good look.
Yeah, blood and gore.
Yes, so we are now on HD, channel number
855. Locally, of course.
Yeah, if you're watching on the KTV platform. If you're watching online, unfortunately we've had to compress the heck out of it, so it is a little bit
but hopefully that will be changing, because it's mainly to do with the megabytes locally.
I just realised why you can't hear me, because my microphone's been sitting on the cake tin. But anyway, go on.
So you were really distant for a
little
bit.
Distant,
Paula's back in the room.
I'm back in the room. Yeah, we have got cake today because it was Steve's birthday yesterday, and I was up till 11:15 making cake last night.
So they are very
nice.
nice.
That's late for you, isn't it?
It is late for me because I'm an old lady and I go to bed at 9. But the better cakes, can I just say, I've gone to the Stanley Services kitchen, and we've got the rubbish ones here. That
it's because good cakes build bridges.
Exactly, and we've now got an invite to Christmas do.
Yeah, we're invited to the Christmas do. Anyway, so we had a visitor earlier on. First one is.
We're going to talk about episode, because we mentioned episode 404. Let's talk about episode 404, Easter eggs.
Yes.
There's one in an interview.
What is this?
It's not Easter this time of year, just so people know.
Yeah, what is this phrase?
Easter eggs are hidden gems, aren't they?
Easter eggs are a hidden gem. Is that not like a well-known phrase?
If you're a gamer, probably.
No, films as well. It's massive
Easter
thing in
eggs.
film buffs. You look for Easter eggs in like all the different films.
Not really Easter eggs.
Is this
it's
the
just
theory
hidden
that
messages
you watch
and things.
something like Monsters Inc. and it's got a Finding Nemo toy in it and stuff?
Yeah,
like
that kind of stuff. They're Easter eggs. They're
Hidden
little things
symbols,
that are hidden
isn't it?
around in films, so you got to look out for.
And references to things. And
There are
So
like
in this
massive online
episode,
platforms.
in this episode 404, we've got an interview with Paul Brickle, and he's being filmed in his office, and there's a whiteboard behind him, and there's a word written on the whiteboard behind him, but we're not going to tell you what it is, because you need to watch week 404. If you're only just downloading the episode, it only costs you £2.
I think he must have been having a tough day and just scrawled it on his board.
As we were saying earlier, maybe he was just describing his work like that. It was just a load of... Can we say what colour it was written in?
Yeah, it's written in green.
Yeah.
It's written in green. Yeah. But you were saying you had a similar thing with your interview with Janet Robertson.
Yeah, from Consolidated Fisheries
and
Limited.
that's a nice piece as well, because that's got some gorgeous shots in it.
Got the toothfish under the water, again abusing the HD this week. And I do have to thank Thomas Farraguia, because I can never say his last name.
Is this the guy that you told me was called Canadian Tom? And when I rang up and said, "Oh, are you Canadian Tom?" he went, "I'm actually from Alaska."
Yeah, and like brought up in California, so nothing to do with Canada at all. But because he speaks French as well, and he's from that part of the world, I just assumed he was from French Canada. That was just an automatic assumption.
Okay.
So something out of you and me, as they say about assuming. But I have to thank him for that, because he provided me with that footage for the promotional video we did for FIFCA earlier on in the year.
Which was also gorgeous.
Yeah, but the underwater footage that they got, and it was actually, I found out, CFL that helped fund the
Conservation Ball.
Well, no, the cameras. the cameras that filmed the toothfish.
Oh, okay.
So Janet was telling me about it, and I was like, oh my God, I have shots of those fish. We'll
So
put
they've
those
just
on.
had a review, haven't they, of their fisheries, of the toothfish fisheries,
Yes, indeed.
and been told it's...
Yes,
They've got the
so
thumbs up.
they MSC certified, which is like a certain certificate looking at sustainability. And they've been MSC certified for years, and they had a certain process put in place in 2012 to help track sustainability of the fishery, to make sure they're not catching too many young fish. So just to make sure that the toothfish fishery, in Janet's words, goes on for as long as it's naturally going to go on for. And it's been set up and going well for about 6 years now. So what they thought they'd do is they'd get a completely unbiased external reviewer to come down. It was a Scottish chap, actually. Katie will love that. Who came down to look at it and just to make sure that the methods that they were using were as effective as possible in managing the sustainability of the fisheries. And she said, apart from a couple of changes to the lexical register, the words that they used, it was really, really good.
Yeah.
So that reflects perfectly on the Falklands fisheries and
Best run fishery in the world,
CFL.
Yeah.
Really cool. And Janet's lovely.
So the other thing that's incredibly good, looking great on the programme this week is a long piece on Pebble... No, not Stuckfin next week. Is a long piece on Dolphins of the Deep.
There's a lot of water stuff.
Of the deep. Dolphins of the kelp. Yep. No, it's a lot of water stuff we've got. It's a theme we've got. Aqua this week.
Yeah. Aqua running.
I went out a couple of months ago, actually it was a good few months ago, with a research team from SARI, the South Atlantic Environmental Research Institute. And I went out with them to Port Howard to do some dolphin watching and spotting of the Commerson's dolphin.
Mm-hmm.
So we were out on the Zodiac for a week, and we were out and about trying to find these dolphins and take photos of their dorsal fins, because each fin has a different marking, like
That's
a
like their
notches and
thumbprint.
stuff.
Yeah.
And that's almost like a fingerprint, so you can suss out whether you've spotted the same dolphin in the same spot or not.
So you go then and go, oh, look, that's Eric.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very similar in that way to the photo identification work done in the Saywell project by conservation, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, I think it's all the same. It's the same method, isn't it? Photo ID.
Yeah.
But then also we did some underwater stuff with the GoPro on a broom handle.
So,
That was quite good.
What cameras were you using on that? 'Cause obviously you're limited in space, aren't you?
Well, because we were on these tiny little Zodiac ribs, I was umming and ahhing about taking the big camera and the big JVC tripods and things, and I ended up going with the gimbal and my iPhone 10, which worked really, really well. So I combined footage from that with our GoPro footage, and I did my interviews on the JVC, and it all actually worked out quite well.
Yeah.
With the gimbal and the iPhone, because the boat's rocking constantly, and if it's rough, that keeps it quite steady.
Yeah. So you were saying earlier about some people who are listening to this will go, oh my, are they using a phone? But actually the 10, and we're plugging this because actually Apple, you could send us a few more 10s down here, because obviously we're on a very tight budget.
Well, wait, before we carry on there, how unique would that be if Apple were up for sending us some new iPhones down here and then pushing this as a plug, a TV station in the South Atlantic, the smallest national TV station,
in the
using
world.
only iPhones to produce a variety of different packages.
Yeah.
How good as a piece of marketing that
So I
would
know
be.
there's
Of course, Apple need to market themselves more.
There's going to be some people out there who are obviously Android users, and obviously there's some very, very good Androids out
There's
there.
some
but
fantastic ones, yeah.
in our office, there's 4 of us, and we're actually all on iPhones. Hannah's got the 10, and there's a couple of us on 7s. I think we've got 6 as well. But the 10, the camera in particular, is
great.
phenomenal, isn't it?
Well, the whole reason I bought it before I came here actually for the job, because I thought the majority of my stuff will be Mojo, and for quick news packages, quick interviews. It's great. The quality of the footage is really good.
It's
and
beautiful.
The fact that it's 4K, you can mess about with it in post if you want to. You can zoom right in and crop things out and do whatever without losing the quality.
Because that's what it's lacking, really, isn't it? That is that really good zoom that we've got on our bigger cameras. But you can, by filming, like you say, filming it in 4K, you're filming it like the size of the universe, and then it just comes down.
Well, I think it's the way journalism's going, especially quick journalism, quick fire news journalism is going phones, because people are filming things straight away as it's happening. Yeah. So you kind of want something instantly. You don't have time to set up tripods and this and that. If something's happening quickly and unfolding before you, you need to just go and
And
film.
I think we might have to look back into previous episodes because if we haven't discussed it next week on the podcast, I'd love to talk about instant gratification, like this generation, exactly as Hannah's touching on there about you want things immediately.
And it's quick video. Do you know your attention span of the consumer is quick?
Yeah.
It's really short.
I went to a World
Need
Screen
quick
Film
fire
Festival while I was in the UK last, and that was one of the things that was brought up is that young people these days, the majority of them don't own a TV because they watch everything online.
And on top
it's
of that, if you-
instant, and it's constant content. That's what they're looking for. And I went to see Jeffree Star, brilliant makeup artist. His lipsticks are fantastic.
Woohoo.
He does obviously a series of vlogs on
Oh,
YouTube.
the dreaded
Oh,
word.
look at me. Looking at vlogs, and they were saying to him, how are you a success? Because he's like such a success. And he said it's content. You've got to produce content. And like you say, you've got a phone and a good editing suite on your phone.
Well, you can do it all on your own. Do you know you don't need the big studio and the lights and this and that. You can do it all instantly.
Although we're talking ourselves out of a new studio night.
No, but I say that we were watching some of the previous episodes of FITV, weren't we?
Filmed on the
yesterday,
potato camera.
and we had cool shots of you out and about in the middle of nowhere doing your pieces and your links with the farm
bright
and the
red hair.
sheep and all
Yeah.
sorts. So it,
It
does
was-
work.
It was a very weather segment on BBC Breakfast.
Yeah.
Here I am at one of the parks in the middle of London. How's it going, Manchester studio?
But this brings us very neatly on because I had a little rant earlier on the week, which we're not going to talk about, but it was about how it takes some time to do a good job, and you can't just whiz these things off. You have to know what you're doing. And you were bringing up journalism, and it's because it is a profession. It's not just somebody who can string a sentence together and write a few words and take some pretty pictures, is it?
Yeah.
It's a profession, and there are ethics surrounding that profession.
Yeah. And I'm going to contradict myself here based on still my favourite quote from one of my first year essays, which is a journalist is someone who does journalism regardless of whether they're paid for it or not. So it's a profession, but it's also a state of mind, as my lecturer
This is
always
going
told me.
deep. This
Yeah.
is
Inquisitive
Get a
mind.
cup,
Yeah.
That's
get a
what
cup
it
of
is.
tea, listener.
Yeah.
Pause this, get a cup of tea and come back.
But the thing is, there's a responsibility as well, and we've spoken before about the fourth estate and everything like that, and I don't want it to be lost just because we're in a smaller community. Like the idea that a journalist is just anyone who picks up a microphone, picks up a pen, picks up a camera and goes out and films, records, writes something and publishes it. That isn't always journalism. You have to understand the ethics, you have to understand the law, you have to understand what you're doing, and there is a responsibility. I think it was a poll done about a decade ago in the UK, and the two least trusted professions in the United Kingdom were politicians and journalists. Journalists so closely behind politicians, and I mean, just for goodness sake, how are you supposed to be the fourth estate when you're the least trusted profession?
But I think people think that you've always got a hidden agenda.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? When you're speaking to people or whatever, that they're worried that whatever they say is on the record and that you're trying to pry things
Twist
out
it,
of them
yeah.
and this and that.
Which to an extent
And we're not
I
like
am,
we don't work for a tabloid newspaper. Do you know? We're not trying to
No,
do
we're
slanderous
not.
things.
No,
and
we're not. And
whatever.
We have had people in the past work for FITV who wanted to take it in that direction. So whenever anything came up, it was like, who is to blame?
But the thing is,
who
it
do I
can.
find to blame? And that's just not what FITV does. Our news items are factual. We base them on fact.
But the thing is,
not
it
on
can be
hearsay.
taken in that direction when it needs to. And I think if you take it in that direction all the time, it's almost like the person who cried wolf, isn't it? It's like if you take it in that direction all the time, that one time where you really need to take it in that direction, people are going to already have their guards up. Whereas, like, if, as Hannah says, like you take things properly, you actually sit down and talk to people most of the time because you're not trying to make a fool out of them. That time where you do need to pry, people will be like, well, they never do this before, they never do this, then there's a reason they'll be doing it. But there's been some stuff recently about the second flight linking South America, and we always knew that it's probably going to end up with a stopover in Argentina, and that considering there are a lot of people who live here who went through the war in '82, there's still people living with those experiences, and I think as a journalist you have a responsibility to report on the facts as mentioned earlier, like the facts of the case, not speculating about what's going to happen, what trend it looks like, or anything like that.
Without putting your personal opinion into it.
And if you want to put your personal opinion into it, make very clear this is my personal opinion. And as you were saying earlier about being unbiased, present the facts for and against. And like that, because otherwise you just create fear amongst a community
and you can't do that.
And you can't do that, especially if you're in a community that is
Especially
susceptible to that fear.
Yeah, quite a small.
Yeah.
I think that links on also to court reporting.
I was going to say that, yeah.
Because there has been some stirrings in the community about the recent court reports, not from us, I hasten to add,
Though
may
we've
have
had
been
it in the
a
past,
little bit upsetting. And as you say,
Close to the
court
bone.
reports shouldn't be upsetting. Because you should write them in such a way that they're not upsetting.
Well, it should be. It's fact.
Yes,
again, it's facts.
So, and that's really bad. No, we don't go into the details. You know, we don't go into the nitty-gritty, blow-by-blow account of the alleged offences. We just sort of gloss over it all.
But I feel sometimes here it can be reported quite close to the bone compared to if you looked at UK newspapers and the way that they report stuff. Don't know how to word this.
No,
We've been
no.
very
Without
careful
being,
because
without
listeners.
slandering.
No,
But
sorry,
it's one of those where I think there has to be a happy medium. I think that's where you're trying to get. You need to give as much of the story to make people understand what happened, but not for it to be too vulgar.
Exactly, that's the thing. Like the verbal, when you say like explaining what the defendant's actually done.
Alleged to have done.
I think you should. Some of it can be said, and obviously that's great. But when it comes to like the gory details or something that's a little bit sensitive, that should not be mentioned. You know.
But it depends on how much relevance it has.
We're not a tabloid. You just said it yourself.
On.
We're not a tabloid. We don't need to do that. Sorry, listener. We had a chat about this before we started, and how we were going to approach this particular subject. And that's why I interjected in the middle just to tell you that we had a little chat because Hannah was going, now how do I word this again? But anyway, we were talking about that and also about journalism, about just...
yeah. Funnily enough, I was skimmed over it and I really wish I'd actually read it properly now. But there was, we were looking at copyright because we were looking at one of Hannah's pieces that she'll talk about in a minute.
Facebook photos, isn't it? Or something?
But yeah, talking about copyright with pictures, and there's a paragraph in McNay's about recycling other people's stories, and I really wish before we decided to talk about journalism I'd just gone over there and had a quick read of it just to see what it says.
Well, let's bring that up on the next week's podcast because I think...
Is it right to just take someone else's article and broadcast it, read it out on radio or television or anything like that?
Well, I think it depends though, because with radio, I know with some radio stations they've got subscriptions to like Sky News, blah blah blah, or whatever, where they've got the cues written for them and stuff, and because you paid for that subscription,
yes, you do.
You get that, and you get the audio clip as well.
Yeah.
But then, and the same with press releases, I guess you can read that without the copyright, without having to mention.
But do you think that's lazy
think
journalism?
I do.
Taking
I do.
a
I
press
think
release and
that's-
not
yeah, I
I
rewording
think we all
it?
think that's lazy journalism.
Yeah, it is lazy journalism. But if you're on your own, say you're doing it independently, small one-man thing, and you're doing a vlog, and you sign up to press releases or newsletters or whatever, and you're doing it, then I think it's doable. I don't think I wouldn't say you're a trained journalist, but if someone's trying to do something on their own independently and you've been sent a press release, so you've got every right to read it straight word for word, I'm guessing, copyright-wise.
Yeah. Well, that's maybe, but if that's a press release.
But we're just getting sniffy about it.
But is a press release
Snobby journalists,
different?
that's what we are.
Is a press release different to just nabbing an article off the internet, translating it, say South Americans, and translating it and just reading it? Is that the same thing?
No, because I think that's
That's
breaks
copyright.
I think that's plagiarism.
And that is what I wanted to read about on McNay's. We'll talk
We're
about that
gonna take
properly next
podcast,
week.
So tune in next week for plagiarism and copyright. That'll be a good one. Bring a cup of tea for that. But
and an alarm to wake you up at the end.
Yeah. Big thing here, of course, is that they don't. There's a myth that there is no copyright in the Falklands. But there is copyright in the Falklands.
Copyright is everywhere. It transcends borders, for goodness sake.
What is it? I want to say it's the Bourne Convention, but it might not.
Jason or
obsessed with Matthew Bourne. I think he's lovely. Anyway, let's move on. You went to a talk last night, and you've given us a few snippets over the morning. And actually, it sounds like we all should have gone. It sounded like a really good talk.
Yeah. Well, Hannah brought up Sari earlier, who she did the dolphin research with. I went to a talk last night by someone else who works at Sari on fur seals and how the population of fur seals in the Falkland Islands, how important is it to the global, or at least the South American, South Atlantic population. And it turns out that the research that they've done in terms of counting the number of fur seals here is much bigger than expected. The last research was done in 1990,
Gosh,
something like
long
that,
time ago,
quite a while ago. And the population has increased tenfold since then. And I mean,
Wow.
I think they counted something like 28,000 pups this year, far larger than they thought there was. So to put it into comparison, one of the largest and most important breeding areas for fur seals in the South Atlantic is Uruguay, and that has 30,000 pups. Argentina has 2,000 pups. It was thought that the Falklands had very similar numbers to Argentina, and they've done this research for the first time in like 3 decades, and they found out it's as important, if not more important, than any of the other breeding populations in the South
Wow.
Atlantic. And it was fantastic. They tracked 6 females and 4 males with these little...
Tell us about it, yeah, because
with
on the
these-
Facebook
Radio
event
things,
yeah.
for the talk, they had the photograph of the
With the-
fur seal
yeah.
with this high-tech little robotic thing stuck on it, looked like a tracker.
Yeah. So the trackers that they have on them are placed on with this two-part adhesive thing. It's glue, and they put it. That's what it is to me. It's glue. They put it on just after they've molted, so halfway through like the breeding season kind of thing. And they have like a 6-month battery life, and what will happen is they will fall off when the animal next molts. So it was I think there were about 6 females and 4 males that they used as part of their survey, which you think, oh, that's quite a small number of them.
Yeah.
And then he tells you that they're about, I think he says something like £4,500 per tracker.
Jesus.
Per GPS, which
And
for
how
a
many do they
small
lose out of
institute-
those?
Oh, they
I was
lose
gonna say.
nearly all of them. But all the information is relayed to a satellite, so they don't have to recover the GPS to get the
Which could be
information
tricky,
back.
yeah.
It was fascinating seeing how they track them, and there were 2 different main populations that they tracked. And based one's on like the Jasons, the set of islands at
Yeah.
the top of the islands, and one was at, I can't remember the other islands, but like bottom of the islands. And it was
Okay.
really interesting to see like the different breeding pattern, the different feeding patterns,
Okay.
of those 2 groups, and they very rarely intertwine.
Okay.
So the bottom
They don't
ones.
have a massive like first sale meeting in the
No,
southeast
not
or
really.
something?
How
They
far do they?
sometimes cross
How far do they go out
hundreds
range-wise?
and hundreds of
Really?
kilometers. Yeah, I think it's like something like the Jason's ones go up to 300 kilometers up the Patagonian shelf.
Wow.
And the northern ones, so the ones at the Jasons tend to feed deeper down in the ocean on fish, whereas the ones at the bottom of the Falklands tend to feed in shallower oceans on crustaceans, so things like shrimp and things like that.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting to see how the same species in different areas feeds and acts in a really different way, even though they're only a couple
And they
miles
ignore each
apart.
other,
But are their
Don't
mating
really
seasons
intertwine.
like the similar time, or?
Yeah. So the species as a whole has the exact same mating season. They just happen in 2 different places and very rarely intertwine. But one of the things I found out
Do
that
you
was
think they can
most
trace it all back to a fallout in previous generations? So they went, no, you're going to go north. We're
Or
gonna
yeah,
go
are
Well,
they, if you go back, are
someone
they all
did-
from the same? Are they all from the same?
Someone did ask, and he said he didn't have that answer just yet. But what he was showing was pictures of some very important breeding areas in 2014 compared to the same pictures in 2018, and the numbers are seriously declining. So the number that they tracked this year is a lot higher than the previous track, but if you compare it to 4 years ago, some of the most important breeding areas in the Falklands, the numbers have reduced by a lot. So we're talking 70 where there were 140
And why
pups.
is that because of fishing and things like
They
that?
think
or?
that's because of predation. And they think it's because of, predation as in the predators going for them. And I was like, a fur seal? What?
What would he
A
say?
killer whale maybe?
Yeah, orca. No, that's what I think. But-
Biggest predator for fur seals, sea lions.
Ooh.
So male sea lions will sort of play around in the shallows right by a breeding population. And I mean, he showed us a picture, and there's the bay down at the bottom, and this quite large hill. And it's a fair distance from the shore, and there's this big breeding population of fur seals. And this was 2014. Same picture, 2018, when he was doing his research. The fur seals are a bit all over the place, sort of they look scattered, there's a lot less of them, and he shows up on the picture, there's a sea lion that's gone all the way up to nab a pup and come back down. So they're thinking that potentially the population might not be, it might be declining because they're getting killed. But it might also be the fact that he was saying that the female fur seals are very alert to the predators. So if they know that they're in an area, they're breeding in an area where before sea lions have come to kill their pups, they won't return to that area.
Clever. See, the ladies are clever.
So like they understand that, so they think maybe the population isn't declining, but it's getting moved around, and maybe they're not coming back.
Or they're going somewhere else.
So it'd be really interesting to follow that
I think
research as he carries that on.
That's another thing that they say to you when there's occasionally when sea lions appear on Surf Bay and stuff like that. They do warn you that they are quite happy to run uphill. You've got to be careful.
Yeah.
And of course that, although it was an elephant seal, that tourist got bitten. In South Georgia last week, and luckily they are okay.
Tell us about that, what you got from when you went on your trip to Kidney.
Oh yeah, I went to Kidney Island last week for the first time.
You're doing all the wildlife,
to see to see the shearwaters, which is a stunning sight. I have to say, I went to Rome during the starling migration, and that's the only time in my life I've ever seen more birds above my head. But the shearwaters are substantially bigger, and they come swooping past you within like a foot of your head. But we were walking through the tussock, and I encountered a sea lion skull with four teeth in it. So I became very primal and took it down to the beach and smashed it open with a rock and took the teeth. So I now have a big old sea lion tooth on my desk.
We have to put a picture up for this podcast.
No, I gave out the smaller ones to some of the other people I was with, and then I realised that the small one was more practical to make into a key ring or something like that. So now I just have a big old tooth, and I don't really know what to do with it. So
right, let's move on from wildlife, and we'll go to. We've done filming, and sorry, it was just going on far too long. I will cut all this out. Pebble, you were on Pebble. So it's going to continue with the HD. We're not filming for HD.
Visual goodies.
Visual goodies. That was the phrase you used. Visual goodies. You went to Pebble Island.
Yes.
Again.
Second time in
I
might as well go and live there, actually. No. I'm doing a piece because Pebble Island is going up for sale, or it is up for sale currently, and I'm doing a piece on the history of Pebble. So when I went out there, I found out a bit about the family that run Pebble, the Dean brothers, and it's still under family ownership now. But
120 odd years, isn't it?
Yeah, 1869. And he bought it. John Malcolm Dean bought it for £400 at the time, and now it's probably going up for God knows what, millions. But yeah, so I went there and I filmed some of the wildlife and some of the sheep and stuff like that, and looked at the settlement and went around some of the buildings. So my piece is going to be hopefully visually lovely.
Because there's a memorial there, isn't there? To
yeah,
one of the ships?
There's a lot of history there. There was an SAS raid there, and 11 Argentine military aircraft were shot down there. So there's a lot of remnants of planes and ejector seats and things like that, which is interesting. There's also the HMS Coventry Memorial on the top of First, or halfway up First. So I've got lots of shots of that, and I'll be looking into kind of the history, the military history of Pebble, and the family history, because it's quite nice. It's a family-run island, and it's I think it's slightly a shame that it's going to be outside of the family for the first time in a long time. It's going to be sold on. But I guess running an island's quite a task to manage, to say the least.
It'll be really interesting to see the history of one of the small islands in the archipelago.
Archipelago.
Yeah.
Archipelago.
So let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is the fact that it's coming up to Christmas. So excited.
Oh, so much Christmas.
Excited.
It's too early for Christmas.
The What's On Guide.
Next podcast, I might accept
the
talking
What's On
about
Guide
Christmas,
is absolutely jam-packed full of Christmas stuff.
And advent calendars, all our advent calendars.
Now listen to this, listeners. Right, Hannah received a parcel earlier on in the week, and her mum had put on it, "Do not open till the 31st of November."
There is no 31st of November, might I add?
30th of November. Guess what she did? She opened it straight away.
But I didn't open the actual advent calendar. It was a lovely big beauty advent calendar, and a chocolatey fatty advent calendar.
And Kate's you've got your advent calendar up. I see.
Yeah. Package from Mum too.
Thomas, do you want me to get you an advent
I was going to say,
calendar?
we need to get you an advent calendar.
It's all right. I'm quite okay, thank you. I'm sticking by my my solitary attitude.
We do this afternoon. I have to warn you, we're going to have to do some singing because we need to record our entry for the challenge concert.
I'm afraid I'm
which is on the 14th.
busy this afternoon.
We should do an FITV advent calendar for our listeners every day.
It's funny
we
you
could
should
do like
say that.
every week.
It's funny you should say that because about 5 or 6 years ago, I did a make when I was doing my Valerie Singleton phase. I did an advent calendar make. And then when James Page was here, he did an FITV advent calendar where he would do like a little clip of something each day of December. We might do that.
I think we should.
That would be
Quite
great on
good for
social
social
media.
media.
On our
I think we
Facebook
should do
page.
that. I think we should do that actually.
Yeah. On our Facebook page. It'd be marvellous.
On the first day of December,
Oh,
a
well, we
rock
can all
hopper
sing.
hatched.
We've got
Do-do-do.
a rock hopper
On the
hatching.
second day, a male
Giving-
petrel gave
laying egg,
laid
yeah.
an egg.
We've got all of that. So that's what we will be doing this afternoon. And we've got next week, because your Pebble piece will be on, so
Yes.
that'll be pictorially pretty.
Beautiful.
We will have the triathlon. I do hope the weather's good on Sunday because we'll be filming the triathlon.
I'm hoping to get the motocross done for next week.
You
as
might be
well,
going to
but
motocross at Johnson's Harbour, which will be look fantastic as well.
Let's hope we've got good weather.
So, I mean, you're going to have to download. You might as well get a subscription, basically, listeners. You might as well get a subscription. It's 60 quid a year. It's nothing.
Might
Oh,
I
yeah.
say as well, the majority of our shots this week have all been in the sunshine.
Yeah, I was gonna
Nice
say
and
it's
sunny,
been
so
really
get your
nice.
sunglasses on when you're watching.
One of the big things we didn't talk about that was filmed this week, was filmed before, but it was Men's Day, International Men's Day.
Oh, yes. Yes, I made a very big point of doing something for International Men's Day. And Katie went along to speak. Katie's in the room, but she's over there.
She's not allowed to podcast today.
So, Katie, just shout and tell us about your men's shed. Because it's not called men's shed, is it?
Shout.
Men in a shed.
The men's shed is what it is across the world, but down here they call themselves the men's group. And it's basically a group of men that all come together once a week, and in their words, they have a coffee and reminisce about their past and just about life and things like that. And all of them said that it's one of their favourite times in the week because they get out the house, they have a chat, and it's just a really good opportunity to socialise when sometimes it's not that easy.
And it was a nice mix of ages, I thought, when I looked at your piece. A lovely mix of ages. You've got people like Tony, who obviously are a little bit older, and then you've got some younger chaps as well, so it's really nice.
It was a really great atmosphere. I mean, I'd love to go along every week, but I don't think I quite meet.
You haven't got the equipment.
You need to get your drag on, and then you could.
Do you know if they're just going to do cups of tea, or are they going to do, because you were saying how in the Borders they did some stuff like woodworking workshops and things like that. Do you know if there's any plans for like physical activities as well?
I'm not sure. I think just with the group that they've got at the minute, I don't think that's a possibility. But yeah, across the world, Men's Shed is giving men a new hobby and sort of working on woodwork or painting or gardening, something like that, to try and, because obviously we all know that being active and being creative spurs on your mental health and can make you feel better. So that's kind of what the men's group's about. So I think that's what Nick down here, who runs the men's group, is working towards.
I think we should get Richard to see if he wants to run a painting class for them, because he does painting for you guys on Saturday morning.
I
You
thought
could
they were saying something about going fishing as well. Maybe in the future doing like a fishing trip down by the Marrow, not too far
that'd
away.
be
which
cool.
would be quite nice.
Yeah.
Right, well, that brings us to the end of this week's podcast.
Next week we'll be saying bye to CBF, won't we?
Yes, next week we will say goodbye
Command
to
of the British
CBF.
Forces.
But anyway, if you want to listen along, look at our website, fitv.co.fk. As I say, 60 quid a year for well, you can do it monthly if you want to, but 60 quid a year is nothing. So,
Bargain.
Bargain for that. Have I said the website? fitv.co.fk? Yes.
Well, have you said the website? Can I say it again? One more time?
Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Facebook as well.
And Instagram.
And Instagram. Oh, Instagram as
You
well.
love it, really.
So we shall see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.